Executive Suite with WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi.
Welcome to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nesi. Always glad to have you with us. Later on the show, we're going to talk about one of our favorite topics on this program, healthcare, and about a company called Doctor's Choice in Rhode Island that's working to make it easier to figure out Medicare for seniors and other people who have an interest on there. But first, we're going to start off with a company I bet a lot of you have heard of, and that is Wright's Farm Restaurant up in Burrillville. And I'm joined today by the owner and president of Wright's, Frank Galleshaw. Thanks for being here, Frank.
Thanks for having me, Ted.
Frank Galleshaw III, and we're going to talk about the family history with Wright's here.
Okay, yeah.
You didn't bring any chickens.
No, I did not, unfortunately.
But you did bring, this is some of the stuff you sell. What are we looking at here on our table?
We're looking at a couple of my food products. I have my salad dressing, which I serve in the restaurant, also my pasta sauce, which I serve in the restaurant. But I do have a food products division. We also serve chicken pies. We have fudge, homemade fudge, and we sell them in supermarkets and convenience stores all across Rhode Island, Massachusetts,
I think about 600 now, right? You have them in a lot of places.
600 stores, correct, yes.
Are you primarily selling it in the zone of places where people know Wright's, have heard of Wright's?
Obviously, yes, because you have that tradition of Wright's Farm, and you have to have the name brand, and they have to recognize, why would I even buy Wright's Farm salad dressing if I haven't even been there to taste it before? So,
so I bet, as I said, most people have either been to Wright's or at least they know about Wright's. This is big family-style chicken dinners in the big hall. It's quite a thing up there. But paint a picture of us the full scale of the business. In some sense, we get a sense of it already looking at the products. But what do you do overall at Wright's? What takes up most of your time, and what are your different lines of business?
Well, the great thing about our business is we're more of an experience and not just a dining facility. I mean, we really do it all. We have a 4,000 square foot gift shop that we basically have things from
you got candles,
candy. Yankee candles,
jewelry,
tons of jewelry, clothing. We have so much stuff. We have hundreds and hundreds of candy, just so many different styles. It's really a great atmosphere to be there. So when you're there, there's just that to do as well. If there's a wait when you're there, you can enjoy yourself in the gift shop. People come just to enjoy the grounds. They'll come up, they'll have dinner, and they'll go outside during the summer. We're located on 55 acres of property. People seem to love that about it. And it really is truly an experience. And we also have a huge banquet facility as well.
Yes, you bring people in events, weddings,
correct.
Things like
we do
that.
Weddings. We do Little League banquets, soccer banquets, a lot of state banquets, school banquets, proms. So we're so many different things to so many different people.
So how's business at Wright's? You know, it seems like the most established, long-standing kind of place. I mean, is it just steady year to year? What does it feel like?
It really is steady year to year, although I can tell you on Sundays when the Patriots play, it does affect us somewhat. We are somewhat a little slower because of their prominence now. Obviously, and their success. But usually it's very steady all year long, and as the years have gone by, we've obviously increased with our business, and it's gotten that much better through the years.
So I had never been to Wright's until my fiance's family took me there. They said it's a Rhode Island institution, you have to go. It's a couple years ago, and it really is, like you said, an experience. Your hallmark is these big bowls. They keep coming out, chicken and salad, pasta, French fries, and everything. But what I didn't know till I was researching for the show today is that style of meal has sort of a history up there in northern Rhode Island, up in Burrillville, in that area where you're from, right? Tell us a little about that, how it's why it's in the culture there.
Well, originally it was done by the Bocce Club. I think it was the Taverniers owned the Bocce Club at the time, and this was back in, I think, the 50s. And they started this kind of in their backyard, I think it was, and they started serving families, and they served people in the neighborhood, and they felt like, well, maybe we should make this a restaurant, make this some type of meal, which really doesn't make sense, the whole meal, when you look at the different parts of it. Nothing kind of goes with each other. And they made it a meal, and this became like a Blackstone Valley institution. It was originally the Bocce Club, then I think McLaughlin's, the Coachman Restaurant, Village Haven, and of course Wright's Farm Restaurant.
To name your competitors there.
Well, you know what, we're really not competitors. We feel we're all in the business together. We like to help each other out. I mean, even if somebody's running out of food, I'll have sometimes the Village Haven, they'll call me and say, Frank, we're short on chicken. Can you get some down? I'll run chicken down to them. We help each other out. We're all in the same business, and we all like to help each other out.
That's terrific. The Boston Globe, I was reading an article they wrote about you a few years ago. They compared the noise at Wright's, we're talking of Frank Galleshaw from Wright's Farm Restaurant to a rock concert, a political rally, or a tryout on American Idol. It gets pretty loud in there.
It can, especially if you're in our banquet room where we do regular transit business on Saturdays and Sundays. It can get somewhat loud. There's not a real cozy, romantic corner you can go in there, but people expect that. I mean, it's a lot of families. You can bring children, and you don't have to worry about them being a little loud. They're having fun, and it's great for them because when they sit down, there's no menu. The food literally hits the table. The waitress or waiter will come over, ask you if you'd like a drink. If so, they'll bring the drink. Then they'll bring the food immediately, and everybody seems to be happy.
Now, talk about the food, the amount of food you go through. I mean, how much on a normal week for Wright's? How much chicken do you go through? How much potatoes do you go through?
On a normal week, we do anywhere in the vicinity of 9,000 to 10,000 people a week, and that's just in 27 hours. We're only open Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So we're not open very many hours. We go through somewhere in the vicinity of about 100 gallons of salad dressing. We'll go through about 500 gallons of pasta sauce, about 13,000 pounds of potatoes for the French fries, and then the chicken, obviously. We go through anywhere from 17,000 to 18,000 pounds of chicken.
How many chickens is that?
That is, well, they're about 2.25 pound birds, 2.5 pound birds. So if you do the math, it's
thousands upon thousands of chickens.
Wow.
The other thing I've always wondered, how do you get the thing I noticed, right? There's a lot of dry chicken in the world at other establishments, but you guys are pretty consistently. It's nice. It's nice. It's roasted.
It's
nice.
You can
tell it's fresh.
Is
there a
moist.
trick to that? How do you keep it moist?
Well, I mean, obviously, there's not a trick to it. I mean, we've been doing it for a lot of years, but we do slow cook it. I mean, we cook it for over 3 hours. Now, most people aren't going to cook a chicken at home for 3 hours. So we slow cook it, and then, obviously we use, some special ingredients that go along with it. But it ultimately is the way we cook it, and when it comes out of the oven, it immediately hits the table. So, I mean, we cook them in pans of 16. So when we cook them, all those juices are flowing between the chickens themselves. Then when we take them out, that pan comes out of the oven. It literally is on a table within 2 minutes.
So that's part of it too. It's so fresh. You're getting it right away. It's not in the supermarket in a little plastic thing.
No, and everything's fresh.
Now, I was shocked recently, and we have to go to break, but I've got to ask one more question here. You can actually order steak at Wright's.
Yes, you can order steak, but isn't the all-you-can-eat variety, like the chicken and shells and French fries are. But you can't have the chicken shells and as much as you like, from that perspective. But the chickens, it's just for people who don't eat chicken, and they don't like chicken. But that's very rare. We serve only about 40 steaks a week out of 10,000 dinners. So it's very rare. We're really not in a steak
People
business.
kind of know you're not a steakhouse. You've kind of made that clear to viewers. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk much more with Frank Galleshaw from Wright's Farm Restaurant up in Burrillville, and then later a bit about healthcare. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi. Later on in the show, we're going to talk to Dr. John Liu, who has founded Doctor's Choice, a company that helps folks figure out the Byzantine world of Medicare in this day and age. But right now, we're very pleased to be joined by Frank Galleshaw III. He is the owner and president of Wright's Farm Restaurant up in Burrillville. We have a sample here of some of their famous products, the sauce, the dressing, the fudge, and we're talking about the history of Wright's here and serving all those chicken dinners, 18,000 pounds of chicken we were talking about before the break. So your name isn't Wright, as people might expect.
Correct.
Tell us a little about the history. Who started this thing, and then how did the Galleshaws come to take it over and build it up?
The original owner, Gene Wright, he owned a farm where the restaurant is located on right now. And at one time, I guess he was cooking he was very involved in his community. So he was cooking for the police departments, the Knights of Columbus, the fire departments, and he raised chickens. So he would literally cut the drum barrels in half that the feed came in. He would cook, and he'd set up a barbecue, and he would cook half chickens on a barbecue, and he just started cooking for a lot of these organizations. So eventually he just felt, wow, maybe I should make this a restaurant. And he literally did it in his garage. Wow. There was a garage on the property where he kept the tractors.
1950s?
This was in the early 50s. Where he kept he kept tractors in the garage, and he literally started the restaurant there, and there were garage doors. And one of the rooms, which is called our Hereford room, was the original garage. It's still there. I mean, obviously, it's not the garage anymore, but it's still part of the establishment.
Oh, that's great.
And that's how he started it. So he ran it for about 20 years, and then in 1972, my father's accountant was Gene Wright's accountant. And he felt like this would be a good move for my father to get into this business. He felt he was a good businessman. He was in the scrap metal business. He really knew nothing about the restaurant
Not a
business.
farmer or anything?
No, he had no idea what this business consisted of. But he felt, okay, this is a great move. His accountant thought it was good for him. And when he bought it, it was about a maybe 300-seat facility, and now it's a 1,200-seat facility.
So big expansion during your
he
parents'
expanded it. He and my mother really expanded it through the years.
Your mother Joyce, of course, I know he always said core to that.
Yes.
So your father died tragically, and I give my belated condolences on that, about 15 years ago. Did you expect when your father passed away, were you ready to take over? Did you think you were? Or was it kind of the surprise when someone was gone
obviously,
too soon?
yeah, it was a big surprise. But he really wasn't spending as much time there. I was in my late 30s. I was about 38 years old when he passed away. And right out of college, I went right into the business. And I worked through the business throughout my whole life. I mean, we used to joke when I was a kid and I got punished, I'd end up going to do, he would send me to do silverware in the kitchen. So it got to a point where I was doing so much silverware, I said I might as well get paid for this.
Yeah, right, yeah, exactly, instead of being grounded.
Yeah, exactly. So I always worked in the business. I always enjoyed the business and loved the business. So it was ultimately the plan that I would take over. I didn't want it to happen that way,
it did,
obviously.
but you knew you'd go into the family business.
I knew I would be there eventually.
Yeah, I think people are gonna, this might shock some folks, Wright's farm restaurant, the chicken farm where you guys are, is co-owned with the dairy farm. Right?
Correct.
What is the story with that? Are they
That's
competing, right?
No, and the dairy farm's wonderful. I love the dairy. But that was Gene Wright's brother owned the dairy. And people are confused all the time. They'll come to us and say, where's the dairy? And the dairy's about 4 miles down the road. So we understand the confusion. Obviously, it's the same name. But that was Gene Wright's brother. He started the dairy. He ran the restaurant, and they're totally separate businesses.
That's too funny. People, they really cornered the market on food in Burrillville, the Wright family there.
They certainly did.
Their parents must have been proud. So now, I got to skip my page. I was on the wrong one. Oh, yeah. So I wanted to ask you about running the Wrights as a business. We've been talking about the fun part of Wrights here. But, on the one hand, it might feel to people like, well, this is almost an easy business. People always go into Wrights. You just turn the lights on, and they're going to be there and make the food. But every business has its challenges. What are the challenges of running, Wright's Farm Restaurant in 2015?
Unlike a lot of restaurant businesses, our employees are fantastic. I have never had to put a help wanted ad in the paper in the 45 years that my family's been in this business. We've been very fortunate, and we hire a lot of families. I mean, I had a waitress, all her daughters worked there, and then their daughters worked there. So we're a big family tradition, so I'm fortunate in that respect. Where we get hurt is on the other end, whether it's the health cost or the price of chicken. Just in the last 2 years, the price of chicken went from 95 cents a pound to $1.45 a pound,
wow.
And it's just very difficult to absorb those kind of increases. But we find a way, and then eventually it comes back down, which it's starting to come back down again. So you never know what the market's going to bear. Whether it's the cost of electricity, and it's just hard to raise prices. I can't just raise prices instantly just because my overhead has gone up. So that's really the challenge, and that becomes more of the issues you need to deal with in your business than dealing with your customers and taking care of your business. But my employees do such a great job with that, my managers and my kitchen managers, that I really can go headlong into what I need to take care of, and that's the administrative end of the business.
Now, has the chicken prices been, we're always hearing, it's always interesting on these shows about food businesses, the food prices and how much you guys are at the mercy of that, much bigger things than your own individual businesses. Has chicken been the main food price change
Chicken, yeah,
concern?
Absolutely. That's the main concern. That goes up and down, and our profit margins, they're really based on the cost of the food.
Yeah.
They're not based on your staff's cost and your employees. It really is always the cost of food. So when that goes up, whether it's lettuce because California they're having a drought or they're having too much rain, it all goes up and down. So you have to somewhat try to keep that in check.
You mentioned seasonality when the Patriots play. Do you see seasons in terms of seasons of the year? Do you see it wax and wane with how many people come by?
Oh, yes, definitely. In the wintertime, obviously, it's much slower due to the weather. I mean, if you just look at last year with all the snow we had, it seemed like it snowed every weekend from the end of January right up until
That's
March.
brutal for the
it is. I mean, we even closed a couple of days, which we never do. We never close. We're always open, whether I open one room or 5 rooms. But that's difficult. So the wintertime gets a little tough. but it's part of the business, and you understand that we've been doing it for 45 years, so that won't change.
So one last question for you. When you look out into the future, do you expect Wrights to stay in the Galleshaw family? Could you see yourself selling? What do you think looking forward?
No, I think it'll stay in. Right now I have a nephew working for me. He's 20, he's going to be 27 years old. He's doing a great job. He's been working for me for about 8 or 9 years now. He's really coming up. I've moved him into a managerial position. He's doing a great job. You know, I never know. I have 2 other nephews. I have 2 boys. One's at college. One, unfortunately, he's in, not unfortunately, but he's in New York working right now. He really doesn't want to be part of the business.
You sound like a true Rhode Islander. Unfortunately, he's in New York.
Yeah.
Frank Galleshaw, thank you so much for joining us, talking
Ted.
about Wright's Farm Restaurant. Don't go away, though, because coming up next, we're going to talk to Dr. Johnny Liu, who is from Doctor's Choice. Stick with us on Executive Suite. Welcome back to Executive Suite. I'm Ted Nisi, and we are talking now with Dr. John Liu. He is the founder and president of Doctor's Choice. He's also a doctor himself. John, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start off. The question we ask so many people at the beginning of these interviews. What do you do at Doctor's Choice?
Sure. So Doctor's Choice, we offer free Medicare consultations to people who are eligible for Medicare. Now, these are people who are 65 or older, who are retiring from work, or who have gone on Medicare because of a disability.
So how can it be free and you have a business?
Right? So actually, the story of Doctor's Choice started unusually. So I was at a primary care office in North Smithfield, and I was helping see patients who, a lot of them were on Medicare. And I was part of a small group practice. It was one of the last freestanding practices, and I really enjoyed the longitudinal component of patient care, and ultimately wanted to go and become a primary care physician. What I ended up seeing was a lot of people were confused about Medicare, and especially with the rollout of the Affordable Care Act, seniors are more confused because they were asking me questions of, you know, is my coverage going to change? You know, what's going to change? Am I going to lose my coverage? What do I do? And I, as a medical provider, I really didn't have the answers on the insurance side, even though we're constantly asked about it on a day-to-day basis. So we went up and started studying the topic of health insurance, which was something I was always really interested in. And I started learning about the complex world of Medicare, you know, the ABCDs and the different choices that you have, and it's actually quite complex.
I was going to say, people think of it as kind of a simple program, but there's enormous complexity in Medicare, even sometimes on the patient side.
Absolutely. So for most people, you know, you sign up for Medicare through Social Security, and then you have a decision to make between a whole series of private insurance companies that you can complete your coverage with. And how we actually make money is that we get paid a fee from the insurance companies that we work with for the enrollments that we make.
Gotcha.
And we work with a wide variety of insurance companies in Rhode Island. We work with, you know, pretty much all the major insurance companies that offer some type of Medicare plan.
So kind of like a broker?
Similar, like
a little different, but gotcha. Okay, so you said there what inspired you to start the company. I think it's interesting. I interviewed you a number of years ago for Providence Business News, actually, at my last job, and you were telling me, this was when you were at Brown, how you first got interested in sort of the nexus of science and business. You've always had kind of a head for the mix of the two. Tell me about that.
Right. Well, I always saw science as a field and business as a major tool that you can really improve a field with. And I saw the two really went hand in hand, and that if you combine the two in a way that was really strong, you would be able to help millions and millions of people. And before I was in biotech, because I really believed and was able to, you know, work at the Slater Technology Fund, which focused on investing in early stage startup companies. And so I got the entrepreneurial bug. And then when I got into the medical field more and more, I started to see a lot of inefficiencies where people were confused, where people were underserved, and really applying the entrepreneurial mindset and saying, how do we use business as a tool to really build a solution to be able to help people across the country.
Now, how's it gone so far? Have you had a lot of take-up? Are people coming to you? Are the doctors referring them to you, or are people just finding you organically on their own when they need this help?
So when we first started, we actually didn't have a model. So we started giving free Medicare consultations to people and seminars, and then Brown really liked us, so we started doing seminars for retirees, and then realized, wait a minute, we have to figure out how we're going to eat. And so after we discovered our business model, what ended up happening was we started working with a lot of employers. So employers a lot of retirees, and also a lot of employers, small businesses, where the owners may be 65 plus, and they're looking for ways to really save on health insurance. Because as you know, health insurance rates have really gone up significantly in the past few years. And on top of that, we also work with a lot of physicians. We are a sponsor of the Rhode Island Medical Society, and we work with a lot of physicians. When physicians have questions and their office staff are being asked questions about Medicare, they oftentimes refer to us because for them, they really like the idea of having somebody that's unbiased to be able to walk a patient through and be able to figure out what the best option is for them.
Now, the Medicare enrollment period actually runs from October 15th to December 7th. It can be easy if people just tick the box that lets things continue as they have. What do you recommend, from your knowledge base, seniors should be doing during that time period?
It's a really important period, and it's a time when everything can change. So each year, even though if you liked your plan for the past year, things could still change for January 1st. So for us, we have a 3-step process that we use when we consult individuals or individuals in groups. We have to focus on whether their physicians are going to be covered still in the network, what prescriptions are covered, and also what their lifestyle is. Are they traveling to Florida for 4 months out of the year? Are they going up to Boston for care? And because if you don't check off those boxes, then you can really run into a lot of surprises come January. And I just wanted to share a story where we're giving a presentation at Brown about a month ago, and we had somebody come to our seminar, and she was very young, and so we were joking, you're way too young to be on Medicare. And in the middle of the presentation, she raised her hand and said, "I'd like to really tell you a story about my mom." And it turns out her story was that her mom was in her 80s, she was very healthy, and she was on a plan that didn't cost her much, and it was a very good plan. She was really happy with it. So she didn't do anything for about 15 years. And what ended up happening was her mom felt tired one day, went to the doctor. Long story short, she needed a heart valve transplant. Wow. And she wanted to go up to Boston for care. And she got prepped, the surgery was scheduled. The day before the surgery, hospital calls her and says, "We need you to wire $200,000 to the hospital." And she goes, "How come? I have insurance." And it says, "Well, mom's insurance didn't have out-of-network benefits. So unfortunately, you have to pay the full amount if you want mom to have the surgery." And then they negotiated, got it down to about $120,000, but still that was a huge financial burden on the family. Mom had the procedures, doing fine, but that could have been prevented with just a 30-minute consultation. Sit down, we ask you the question, something big would happen, what would you do? And in that case, we would have been able to save mom some money, and the most that she would have spent is roughly $5,000.
That is a powerful story right there. So we only have about 45 seconds left, so I have to keep this one brief. But state leaders in Rhode Island always looking for ways to have innovative companies, startups like yours, and young educated workers in the state. What do you recommend from what you know? What do you think could be good that Rhode Island could do to have more young companies start here and stay here?
I know a huge handful of companies that have been really successful in Rhode Island that have created hundreds and hundreds of jobs. And Rhode Island is a huge service economy. And I'm a big believer in the saying that show me the 5 people that you spend the most time with, and I'll show you who you are. And I think that there's huge opportunity to find who those business owners are and to be able to get them together and to inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs. Because once you're around people who are moving forward, they're following their dream and they're creating something, and the true happiness comes from continuous progression towards a goal. And get those people together in as many forms as possible. I think the state's doing a lot of great things. They're hosting a lot of great programs, the business plan competition, the Slater Fund, and a lot of other opportunities for people to get together. So more opportunities to be inspired by people who are movers and shakers.
All right, that's all the time we have. Thank you so much, Dr. John Liu, and thank you for joining us this week on Executive Suite. Great.